Hi there, and welcome back to our channel. My name is Helen,
I am Joseph.
and
We
we
are
are
the
the Joe-Attahs.
Joe-Attahs.
So we're still on our Q&A series for singles, and it's been interesting because
Amazing.
we've seen a lot of questions, very interesting questions. If you have a question concerning your relationship, concerning dating, concerning marriage, please send us a message in the comments or send us an email with the email you'll see in the description box, and we
Absolutely.
will do well to respond to you accordingly. All
Absolutely.
right. So, what's the question we're answering today?
Okay, this is a very long one.
Okay. Ready.
All right, so here's a question. I'm dating a girl who is Miss Independence.
Miss
Yeah,
Independent.
in code. And of course, for someone who is conscious of my role as a man, it makes it extremely difficult for me to love her. And it's difficult to show her that I love her because she's overly independent. It's not too bad now because we're just dating. But when we eventually get married, I'm worried that she may not allow me to love her, protect her, and provide for her as I should. Should this be a concern? Is this some form of trauma?
Wow.
It's a long one,
Yeah,
but very apt.
yeah, and you want me to say something?
Yes, I think you should start. Or should I say something first? Okay, let me start.
Okay, yes, please.
All right. Well, okay, I will start by saying that this is a valid concern
Yeah, but for
for a man.
you to even be
Yes.
asking, it just tells me that he's a good man.
Yes, this is a valid concern for a man because these are issues that most times some people don't even identify.
Yeah.
When you see a woman that is overly independent, for some men, it's a good feature.
Yeah, they're happy that
Exactly,
she's not depending
yeah.
on them.
So it's a valid concern. But I would start by saying that okay, like a lady being independent is okay,
Yeah.
but being overly independent is something. I mean, that means there's something wrong, and it's okay that you have identified that it's overly, which is why you need to pay attention to it. Truth is sometimes people growing up and they were not sexually abused, they were not harassed or molested, they had a very beautiful childhood, and then they wouldn't know that they have one form of trauma or the others. So being overly, because even the Bible says that whatever is even good when it's overstretched, it becomes bad. When truth is overstretched, it becomes heresy. When independent becomes overly, that means there's a traumatic experience. So now that you've identified it, I think this is a time to sit her down, talk about her childhood, get to know her, very intimately, personally rather, and ask questions that will, create an enabling environment, ask her questions that will be able to, help her to talk. Like, at what point did this decision start, and what could be the reason behind this resolution? I'm not trying to make you to become dependent. I'm not saying don't do anything for yourself. I'm not saying, abandon yourself, but when it gets to a point where I cannot take care of you as I should, it bothers me. And I know my role as the man in this relationship. No matter what you have, you should be able to allow me to take care of you. So when you talk to her, you will be able to identify that she's probably that there was a hurt or a pain that she just decided she refused to heal. So she decided to build something that will just cover for that as a defense. And if you're able to handle it now, you'll have a very productive union when you eventually get married. So it's a good thing that you're a good man for identifying it at this stage. I believe that if you have a heart-to-heart conversation, you'll be able to unravel what could be the reason behind. But I must tell you that is sponsored by a traumatic experience that is maybe not even known by her at this point. So I think if you probe deeper, you may be able to help her and help yourself so that your relationship can be balanced.
Yeah. Well, I think that the question feels very personal to me because it's it's I kind of have been in that place, and I have so much to say that I don't even know where to start from. But I'm going to get very vulnerable and just share my side of the story or my own story, and I hope that it resonates, and I hope that the person in question is even able to see this and recognize. So I've heard about childhood traumas, and well, I recognized it as something that is a thing, and I have always even talked about it, but I never saw myself like someone who had trauma, any form of trauma at all. Because I mean, I didn't have a bad childhood. I had a good childhood, My parents were good. My dad was good. However, my mom was also good. But sadly, I didn't have any form of abuse or anything or molestation, or I didn't experience anything of that sort. So I would say that I had an
Yeah, excellent.
okay childhood, very okay childhood. However, I lost my dad at about 10, and I was just in what, primary 5 then, and it's I was really close to my dad. I was really, really, really close to my dad, and I absolutely loved my dad, and I, you know, sometimes try to even remember all of the memories and all that, but I realized that it's even hard to remember. But I didn't think too much about it because it's something I really wanted to forget, because it was difficult for me, when my dad passed. My mom, was dealing with grief in her own way, and there was just no room for me to grieve. We just had to move on. Like, I couldn't express how I was feeling. I didn't even know how to express how I was feeling,
You were
and
just a child.
I was just a child. Who do I even express it to? So it was really just difficult, and the only option I had was to move on. So I didn't realize it, but I buried all of the hurt, all of the anger, and my biggest anger was, how does someone you love so much, someone you need, someone who is so important to you, just leave you, and you're never going to see them again. And what even angered me even more was the fact that I couldn't be angry at him, because he didn't
You didn't
he
take his
didn't
life.
choose, yes,
Yeah.
didn't choose to leave. He got sick and never recovered until he passed, and I was angry. So it was just so frustrating, and since there was no vent, no way to express, I couldn't express, and even if I wanted to express to whom, my mom was dealing with her own grief, and I just buried all of it and moved on, like I was expected to.
Now you thought that you had moved on.
Yeah, I thought I had moved on. I literally moved on, but I didn't know that, well, what I couldn't deal with at
This
that
way.
time was, waiting for me in front. So fast forward to um growing up, I I realized that it wasn't conscious, but I got to a point where I realized I'd made up my mind that nobody will ever leave me like this again. I would not give anybody the opportunity to ever leave me again, because I kept on thinking about it, and I told myself that people always leave. Some choose to leave, like you can be in a relationship and the
They break
person
up.
breaks up with you and they leave, But some people will leave and it's not their fault.
That's right.
Some people, something might happen, or they might even die, just like my dad, and it won't be their fault, and I would be back in that, place. So consciously or unconsciously, even, I made up my mind that nobody was going to ever be that important in my life, that they leave me hanging like my dad did. And it made me toughen up. I became independent. I didn't I became very, very overly independent. I would be nice to everybody, take care of everybody else, but I didn't expect anybody to take care of me. I didn't want anybody to be so important. I didn't want to have to depend on anybody. I didn't want to need anybody, so that if tomorrow you're not there, I'm fine, I'm good. And it worked well, it worked really well for me while I was single. If you took me out on a date, on our next date, I'm paying, because I don't want to feel like I'm owing you anything. I was that independent. You know how someone is around you and they never need anything from you. So there was always that assumption that I had, So some people who, didn't have understanding would just assume that, she's from a rich home. So I beg, do you have 5K there? And as a student, I would give them. So that's how independent I was. And fast forward to getting married, I remember that I still was in that space, and I still made up my mind consciously that even my husband will one day leave me. Maybe not because he chose to, but one day he may just not be there. Maybe he will pass on or something, and I will be all alone. So I decided to be as independent can be. And I think that that kind of affected us, or it affected intimacy.
Thank God for me.
So thank God for giving me a really patient husband, because somehow he has sucked it all in and giving me time, giving me grace. He probably didn't even understand why I was that way, but he he has just been patient. He just accepted me with all my baggages. And the thing is, I never for one thought that it was a big deal. Like, it's okay to be. And he actually appreciates, independence to some extent. So it also wasn't an issue, but I was like all the way up there, and I literally would not need him for anything. And that kind of used to frustrate him. If I have an issue, I sort it out by myself. If I have a need, I try to sort it out by myself. Um, if he's not around, I'm good. Oh, I love you and I miss you, but I'm good. So it's really, really affected intimacy to the point that, I feel like it also affected our sex life, because I never wanted to be in that place where I'm needy. Or I even if I'm needy, I acknowledge that I'm needy. I didn't want to receive. It affected how I received love. So, and all of this, I didn't realize it until not too long ago. So, for me, realizing, sitting down with myself, because I started having, you know, memories of my dad and feeling almost depressed, and it was reoccurring. And so one day I just said to sit with that feeling, not to push it under the carpet again, not to sweep it under the carpet again. And I realized that I was still hurting. It's been over 20 years and I'm still hurting.
Without knowing.
And yes, without knowing, because I wasn't in touch with those emotions. I'd swept them, I'd shelved them somewhere and refused to, go through that grief. So I didn't grieve my dad. I was rather angry, and the best way of dealing with that anger was to sweep it under the carpet. And so many years down the line, it showed up in the form of trauma.
And you say these things are very subtle.
Yeah.
These things are quite subtle, and that's why. And it turned out to be. I mean, I think as if the people were prophetic to ask this question, because you couldn't have been a better person answering the question.
Yeah, because
answering it with your own experience. And this is just one of the most subtle aspect of trauma.
Yes.
Yeah, because some people, they had physical attack, verbal abuse, sexual abuses, and molestation. Yeah. So they can tell easily that I had a rough, a traumatic childhood. But in your case, that was not it.
Yes.
Yet so these events.
Yes, traumas can show up in different ways and can be triggered by all sorts of things that some, just like in my case, you're not
even aware for a long time.
Yes. So it can even be someone else's experience. For instance, I read a story of a lady whose mom had a bad marriage, and because of that, she resolved to not give any man the opportunity to treat her the way her dad treated her mom.
Yes.
And this was something she didn't experience herself
personally.
So it can be anything. It can be literally anything. So one of the things that helped me is sitting down with my emotions and sorting them out, trying to understand what I was feeling and trying to allow myself feel it so that I know where it was coming from.
Absolutely.
And I was able to trace it, that, oh wow, this is where all of this is. This is why I have been this way. I've always known myself in my adult age as an independent person, and I like it like that. But I didn't realize that it was a dysfunction. It was a trauma response. My wanting to pay people back, my not wanting to need anybody, not wanting anybody to be so important so they don't disappoint me or they don't need me, all those kind of things. All of those things were trauma responses. So for me, the most important thing that will happen to that lady is for her to realize that she has trauma. And then the next step is to begin to gradually deal with that trauma. And for me, the best way I have found is, first of all, allowing yourself to go through. If you need to
if you need to cry, just enter somewhere.
Allow yourself to cry.
Just cry. Let the tears out.
Yes, if you need to talk about it, sit down with someone who is not going to judge you and just express how you feel. Anger, pain, hurt, betrayal, whatever it is. express it. Just say exactly how you feel. Allow yourself to feel those things, and then decide to forgive yourself. Forgive if there was someone in particular that hurt
Forgive
you.
them.
Forgive that person, and then
Move
let
on.
go and move on. So going forward, you'll be listening to podcasts, messages, and all of those things. And one thing that helped me also was listening to messages. So listen to messages about trauma, about healing from trauma, because you need to heal.
Yes.
If you don't heal, there's nothing that the other person can do for you if you have not decided to heal.
Yes.
So, but if you decide to heal, then that person can then help you by being there, by being supportive, by being understanding, and by giving you grace.
That's
So
right.
to the asker, the person asking,
Yes, I think.
you will need a lot of to give her a lot of grace. You will need to be patient. My husband has been patient.
I just got an award.
Has been, an extremely patient person with me. So you would need to be patient with her, especially since you say you love her.
Yes.
Love. The Bible says love is patient.
Patient. That is
Love
one
is
of it.
kind.
Yeah.
So that this is when you now demonstrate your love. So you have an ideal picture of how you want your woman to be, but while she's on her way to that place, you need to be patient. You need to be kind, and you need to give her grace.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, well, I think if this is done, but I think my joy is that it's the guy who recognized this and then is asking. So it's already they're already on the right path.
Yeah.
So just like she said, you've heard the story. Sit down with her, call her attention to it. Let her understand that it could be maybe from her conversation with you, you'll be able to help her identify that this is actually a traumatic experience, and it can be healed.
And it must not be a one-off conversation.
It's a one-off conversation.
What,
of course.
The conversation, and it's not steering you in the right direction.
Just leave it.
Fight.
Yes.
You must not
Absolutely.
win. So just let it sit and just bring it up
again
another time
right.
when she's in a better space emotionally, and see how it goes in another way. Yeah. So and see how it goes.
All right. So just because we like this men of God, I can make some recommendations. Apart from listening to us, you can listen to people like Bolaji Do. You can listen to people like Emmanuel Aaron, Apostle Emmanuel Aaron. Can listen to Femi Lazarus. I think these men have spoken extensively in the area of dealing with trauma.
Yeah.
And of course, if you want to shoot us a question as well, please do well to check the email in the description of this video and send us a direct message, or why not send on the comment section, and we will do it to respond to you accordingly. We love you, and we know that this will work for you and work for others as well. See you in our next video. Bye-bye. Please subscribe and share. Subscribe. All right.